Good evening and welcome back to the Behind the Leazes podcast. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new era for Newcastle United. Eddie Howe, or Eddie Howe's assistants, take charge of Newcastle's first game at home against Brentford. I'm thinking of David Brent. And what an absolute classic it was. 3-3 at St James's Park. A fantastic game on a Saturday afternoon. It's the Fab 3 today, unfortunately, not the Fab 4. Rob couldn't make it, but we will have another person join us a little bit later in the podcast. Oh, maybe not, actually. We've got Andy, though, and we'll have also got Adam. Gents, how's it going?
Spot on, mate. Spot on.
Nice one, Adam. How about yourself, mate?
It's going all right. Not too bad, mate.
Nice one. So, of course, we are talking about that game that happened yesterday afternoon, 3-3 at home to Brentford. It wasn't the win that we were maybe hoping for. It wasn't the 5-0 that Andy was certainly hoping for. But it was still a classic game, and it was good. I think a lot of people noticed a bit of a change tactically. We're very forward-thinking, 23 shots on goal. Maybe it's not on target, but still, it's a change, isn't it? Andy, we'll start with you. What did you make of the game?
Excellent. Total change of mentality to see us actually going forward and attacking it. It was watchable, you know what I mean? It wasn't like watching paint dry, or I didn't want to turn off halfway through, which for most of the season I have felt like with Newcastle. So it was great to see us going at a team, but unfortunately coming up short with just the point. But I think we're more than deserved all 3 points in that game.
Definitely, you could tell that the players were playing with a lot of confidence as well, especially Joe Linton, who managed to bag himself a goal. Unfortunately, missed a pretty vital chance at the end of the game, but still, it was night and day compared to his recent performances, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely, mate. I think that's what he's need. I hope he's came in at the end of the game and the coaches have getting him to one side and saying, look, that was fantastic. That's what we need from you, because what he needs now is that confidence booster. And hopefully more like that going into the next games, because that's exactly the player we're paid 40 million for. So hopefully that's him kicking on now and more like that. Let's
hope so. He's definitely a player who plays with confidence. He's absolutely class with a bit of confidence. Even in the Tottenham game, when the takeover went through, the fans were really behind the team, behind him as well. He was really, really good in that first half and in parts of the second half as well. Adam, we'll come to you next. Once again, you're at the game. The atmosphere must have been absolutely buzzing.
Yeah, the atmosphere was good. I don't think it was as good as the Tottenham game, but again, with Eddie Howe having COVID, I guess that would have deflated some people not seeing a new manager there. But in terms of the game itself, there's a lot of positives to take from it, but I still feel like it's 2 massive points dropped. We shouldn't be conceding 3 at home against Brentford. I mean, yes, I don't want to be that negative person, but we are 20th in the league. We haven't won all season long. We've got to be taking this one game at a time, and that's now 2 points I felt like we dropped yesterday. In terms of players, obviously Joe Linton for me was man of the match. He said that he does extra training outside the training session. You can tell 100% on it. He was just going all game long. I know Andrew doesn't like him, but I actually think Shelby had a really good game as well. I was a big fan of him, the way he's passing the ball around. Again, those two players, week in, week out, they'll be good football players, but the problem is they're inconsistent and they don't always get the job done. But yeah, it's just the same players. I like you down there. I mean, you get into the bits, but the defenders, the goalkeeper, I mean, oh God, don't you get a start with them. But going forward, we looked really good though.
Yeah, I don't think it was a game that should have been 3-3, but unfortunately it was. We went 1-0 up, a nice little goal from Jamal Lascelles, just a nice little bullet header. All 9 of the goals he scored in the Premier League have been headers, so Mr. Consistent there, captain fantastic. Of course, Ivan Toney did bring it back. It was 1-1, and then, once again, Rico Henry managed to get a goal. It was a lovely early cross from the Brentford player. But the game, it was very sort of topsy-turvy, wasn't it? Andy, I'll come back to you. Shelby, like Adam said, not a player that you give a lot of praise, but I must say as well, personally, I thought he had a quite good game.
I'd agree. It's like he's had a total change of mindset and a kick up his backside, really. As far as match fitness, though, he did start to lack once it got to, I think, about the 75th minute, which that match fitness will come with how Eddie Howe's training them. So it's exciting to see if he is going to start playing like he cares again, because he quite clearly did in that game, and it was great to see. It's just whether that'll be consistent. That's my problem.
Yeah, I think that's always a worry with John Joe Shelby. He's definitely playing to keep his place in the team without a doubt. You know, you've got the likes of Joe Willock, Isaac Hayden, Sean Longstaff, all battling for them centre midfield places. We've started with 5 at the back in this game. Maybe it's a bit of a surprise, maybe an unwelcome surprise as well. We did think that we would have been starting to play with 4 at the back. We mentioned it in the last podcast, but I think maybe with a better defence, it would have gone quite a bit better. Adam, do you agree with that as well?
Yeah, well, the defence and the goalkeeper, like I said before, they are the reason we didn't win yesterday. I don't want to just pinpoint individuals out of a team because, again, we are a team together, but it's the same players week in, week out. We say in every single podcast, it's the same ones that go out there. They get played week in, week out, and they let the team down all the time. Like, I don't want to be that person, but the likes of Clark, I mean, Lascelles had a shocker. Darlow, I mean, oh my God, don't get me started with Darlow. And I think Richie defensively was a mess again. He's great going forward, though. But I mean, I'm sick of saying it. I'm just saying the same people every single match. I mean, Lascelles has been terrible every game this season. I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, you got to look at the table where we're the only team that hasn't won. We're the only team that hasn't had a clean sheet this season. And again, you look at a team like Norwich. I've just watched Leeds before on the TV against Tottenham. Yes, they lost the game, but they were in there for pretty much the full match and they gave it a good go. But Newcastle, some games just try and some games they don't. And that's something that needs to change under Eddie Howe, because at the position we're in now is not a team in Premier League history that has stayed up after being winless in 12.
See, it's a shame, I think, with Jamal Lascelles, because obviously he scored that goal, but it might have been marred a little bit by the own goal that he scored. But I still think it's just a defender's instinct. You would always stick a leg out when a goal or when a shot even is coming next to yourself. You don't know if it's going to go wide or not. It's just one of them things that happens. And unfortunately, this time it has cost us the game. It has cost us a couple of extra points. But we'll just have to see what happens towards the end of the season. Eddie Howe, of course, he did test positive for coronavirus. So it was Jason Tindall, Graham Jones, who took the reins for this game. I think Jason Tindall was the head coach for that game, though. How do you think he did, Adam?
Well, in terms of Jason Tindall, I wasn't a fan of the lineup, but I assume Eddie Howe picked the lineup before any of the coaches even turned up. So again, I felt like 5 back against Brentford was just unnecessary. I mean, in the game itself, it didn't cause too much of an issue apart from the defenders themselves, but I still felt like a 4-back should have been an ideal choice against them. Selection-wise, I didn't agree with some of them. I felt like Mankiewicz should have started. I'm not a fan of Murphy at right back, I'll be honest. I feel like he's a better player going forward. Centre-half-wise, obviously, I've already said Lascelles and Clark. I mean, week in, week out, Clark should never be playing on a Premier League pitch for me, especially when you've got the likes of, Fernandes sitting in the reserves. I mean, yeah, some people might not be a fan of him, but I think he's by far a better defender than Clark. Lascelles understanding being the captain, but again, I think he's been awful all season long. Richie, I think, was great going forward. He got a really good crossing for the first goal, but again, defensively, the second goal came from his side. I mean, I'm just sick of saying it. Every single week, he just gets destroyed by the winger. But in terms of selection, though, Jason Tindall, I mean, in the match, he did what he could. As far as I'm aware, Eddie Howe was over the telephone telling what subs to bring on. Of course, Ryan Fraser was a game changer when he came on. So I imagine Jason Tindall wouldn't have done much, but I mean, from what I've seen, it was more of an individual error on players than actual sort of managing problem.
Federico Fernandez, Fabian Shaw, both back in the lineup as well. Andy, what did you think of their performances?
Shaw was great. I mean, you know what you're going to get with Shaw. He's a ball playing centre half, and that's something we've been missing from all season. We've struggled to dispense the ball from the back, and usually it's just been Maxi on the halfway line by himself, and that's where we've struggled going forward. And funny enough, Shaw comes back into the line. We've had the most shots on goal that we've had all season. We've had more than 50% possession for the whole entire game. Would look threatening because of the changes that were made at the back. The only thing I would say is I think Kieran Hogg and Carl Darlow have both played themselves out of that starting 11 for me. Yesterday, I think Federico Fernandez does need to come back into that lineup. I think he's probably the best defensive-wise centre-half we've got at the club. And I was actually really surprised that Martin Dubravka wasn't the starting goalkeeper yesterday. And I think he definitely will be against Arsenal, because I can't see a reason why Darlow would then start after his blunders yesterday.
Yeah, big error from Carl Darlow yesterday. Once again, potentially cost us the game. There were, multiple instances where we could have won it, we could have lost it, and, that was definitely one of them. What did you make of the mistake by Darlow?
It's just schoolboy error, wasn't it, really? He just hasn't been ready for it coming. And like you said before, it's his defensive instinct to stick your leg out. And I mean, look, Tony was always going to score. Saw a stat before saying that Newcastle have had the most goals conceded by former players. And it was always going to happen that Tony would score. I mean, he's when you watch him up front, the striker that he's developed into, he's an absolute nightmare. He's hassling strikers and stuff. And I thought Callum Wilson was quite quiet yesterday. He didn't look his usual self. There was a chance where he dropped it, and rather than just hitting it first time, I think he's trying to put it back onto his right foot. And I mean, I don't want to pinpoint him out, because there was a couple of chances we should have took during the game. I mean, Maxi, there's a few times I thought he was maybe trying to do too much and should have let go of the ball. I mean, there was one where Richie was absolutely screaming at him on the left-hand side just to knock it in, because Richie's great at them first-time balls in, and Maxi should have released it then. But like I said before, it's promising. I can look and think, right, okay, we can maybe build from this and maybe go on to win games. So we've just got to see what happens in the coming weeks.
Adam, another goal for St. Maximin. A fantastic celebration as well. What did you make of his performance?
Well, again, I mean, everyone already knows that St. Maximin's a game changer, and in that match, I mean, some of the ones he's made were class. The one we made where he passed it to Jolit and he tried to turn inside and he just didn't do anything. I mean, that one was incredible. Randy Pinusha full length the pitch and should have got the assist there, but unfortunately for Jolit, that was one of the only moments in the game where he kind of made a mistake. But St. Maximin is just a terror, and every single time he's on the board, you imagine he's going to do so. Like Andrew said, there was times where he was kind of hogging the ball. He should have passed off to someone, but about 90% of that game he was spot on though. And again, that's the reason why football fans love him so much, not just Newcastle fans. But it's what you expect from him. I just hope that in the coming weeks they continue to do so, because I know he's had a few quiet games before the one yesterday.
Andy, I think your Alexa's got something to say about Alan St. Maximin, I believe. Oh, sorry, you said about Joe Linton, rather.
Alexa, who's the best Premier League player of all time?
That's a sticky one still. I would say Alan St. Maximin or Gabriel Oberton, but for me it has to be my boy J7 Joe Linton.
Well, I mean,
tragic. It's tragic.
Alexa has spoken, and that's the answer that you've got. But yeah, I think it was really encouraging to see certain players in the lineup. Of course, Fabian Schär, he's one of my favourite players. I thought Federico Fernandez played, my bad. He didn't. Jamal Lewis back on the bench as well. Isaac Hayden on the bench. Maybe surprising when you see Shelvey. When you saw Shelvey, maybe before the game was played, but his performance, I think, really sort of proved that he should have been in that lineup. I expect us to start playing four at the back a little bit more often. Of course, Arsenal's the next game that we've got coming up. Eddie Howe, of course, is he going to miss that game because of COVID, the Arsenal game?
I would have thought so with guidelines. I think
he'll get tested on a daily basis. If he's back, but it's just when to be test negative, really, he can come back.
So just waiting on a negative test. So hopefully he could be back then. But do you think if Eddie Howe was in the dugout for that game, Adam, there would have been a bit more influence and maybe a win?
Oof, I'm not too sure about that. That was quite hard to call. Maybe, but my only problem being now is that the fact he won't be training with the team this week, which means it's up to Grange Jones and Tindo to actually get them going, which should be interesting because Eddie Howe's had a big influence in the training session the last couple of weeks. So I think it will make a difference to the Arsenal game if he's not back. But in terms of the game yesterday, I mean, considering he's done all the training stuff and obviously I imagine would have picked the lineup, despite the fact he wasn't there in person, I don't think it would have made that much of an impact.
When Ivan Toney scored as well, I noticed he kissed the Brentford badge, but then he put like a little tweet out afterwards saying, he was happy to be back at St James's Park. It was where it all began for him. And he was a bit of a bittersweet moment when he saw him on the pitch and then obviously scoring as well.
like I said before, mate, it was expected. Since leaving our academy and leaving our setup, he's developed into a brilliant striker. And certainly would love to see him come back. I think he's a defender's nightmare. And to be honest, that's what Joe Linton started looking like during the game. He was using his size in bullying defenders, which great. You know what I mean? It's what we've been wanting to see since he's came in. And if Eddie Howe's getting the best out of that player, then I'm all for it. But yeah, Tony was always going to score, mate. Always going to score. And I think he'll get into double digits this season easy. I think, and maybe it is someone we should be looking at in January. Obviously, Brentford are going to try hard to keep the biggest asset, really, him and Buemo. But yeah, he's a great striker, and I think that's all you can really say on him.
I miss him. I really, really miss him. I only saw him in a couple of games.
Deserved a bigger chance. And I mean, look, when he was coming through our setup, look, it was Steve McLaren in charge, and I mean, look, he ruined Rolando Aaron's career for me. He looked brilliant in that 14-15 season.
It was,
when he scored away in the League Cup at City. He looked like he was going to be a brilliant young talent, and then McLaren started playing left wing back, and he clearly had no defensive attributes to him, and that ruined his career. And I mean, Ivan Toney, I think, just spent too long in the academy when he should have been coming up. And I mean, for who he was battling with, the places at the time, I think he should have really came up earlier than what he did. But he went to Peterborough, developed into a brilliant player, and now he's thriving in the Premier League.
Of course, yeah, I remember Ivan Toney. I went to the Palace game, I think it was 14-15, and he scored. It was a 3-3 draw, just like the Brentford game yesterday. He scored in that game. It was absolutely fantastic. But the season we got relegated when we was playing left wing back, there was such a big injury crisis on the left-hand side of the pitch that he had to play there, and it was just so unfortunate that it had to be him when he had no experience. And I think he got lumped in against Chelsea as well, and we got beat 5-1 that game. So it was just an absolute nightmare. But he did sort of come up, and he scored against Spurs at the end of the season. But unfortunately, nothing's ever come from it. I think that's actually a question that I want to ask: is the biggest sort of waste of talent to ever come out of Newcastle, or just maybe to flop at Newcastle or flop at another club since he's come from Newcastle? Adam, I'll start with you first.
Ooh, what do you mean by that? Actually, I don't know what you mean by that.
So a player who maybe looked quite good in the academy, or a player who had a good opening season for Newcastle and then just sort of didn't make a career out of himself after that.
Ooh. It's quite an interesting one, actually. I haven't really thought about it too much. I'll say Andrew first. I'll actually do that.
I can rattle off a few. Don't worry. Remy Kabir. We brought him in from Montpellier. He'd been in the league team of the seasons over in Ligue 1. Just couldn't ever get to grips with the Premier League. I don't think he had the physical attributes too. And I mean, I don't think it was necessarily his fault. I think it was more player management. And with what's been said about this player since leaving the club, and that he should have been at, I've seen someone say Messi's level, but hadn't Ben Arthur, I think we got the best out of him for maybe a season and a half. And I mean, I know he had his injury problems, but he should have had a bigger career than what he eventually did. Facundo Ferreira, when we brought him in, did nothing. Luke de Jong, since we had him in, what he's done since then. And if we want to talk from our academy, I know I mentioned Rolando Aarons before, but someone who always looked like they were going to hit the heights, but then slumped, Stevie Taylor. Stevie Taylor was always in and around talks for the England squad and just dropped off. And that was disappointing, I think.
Could throw Jack Cole back in there as well. He was actually in the England squad. And then, what happened to him? I'll throw a name out there. Niall Ranger. Was there any real potential from him? Or do you think that
attitude stunk? Attitude absolutely stunk. No, I don't think he would have ever have made it properly.
Always an attitude problem. Adam, you've had a little bit of time to think. What do you reckon?
In terms of a player that's kind of been like a youngster at the club, I would say I think Sammy Andiobi's a bit of a flop. I think when he used to play for Newcastle, he's a big, tall player. He's got pace on him. And I thought he'd be a good player once he left Newcastle, but he went to Forest. He's been out for his full career now. So, I felt he would have done a bit more. I know, sure, yes, he's not the most amazing player ever, but he did score a lot of goals in the Premier League. I mean, he is somewhat of a legend, you might say, in Newcastle now. But in terms of players that were good for the club that didn't really do much elsewhere, I think Kabay is a good example. I think when he left the PSG, I was expecting him to be like the next big thing, but nothing happened to PSG. Really. He was a decent player at best for Palace, but he was never the player once he was for Newcastle. So there are probably a couple of examples I would give personally. But how many you thought about that question? We also had a little bit of time to sort of dig that one in.
Definitely, I feel like we need just a theme podcast on players that have absolutely flopped, because we could fill up half an hour alone in that. We'll move on. We'll speak about the Arsenal game a little bit, because I feel like it's maybe a game that we could win, looking at the result that they've just had against Liverpool. I know, towards the top of the league, Liverpool, best team in the world, you could argue at times, with the best players in the world as well, like Salah, Mane, Alisson, them kinds of players. Arsenal are a team that are still in form. They were unbeaten in, I believe, 12 before the Liverpool game, in a cracking run of form after a bit of a rocky start. Andy, what changes would you make to the squad first and foremost to see if we could salvage a point or three here?
The defence, definitely. I think it's going to be important to counter-attack. Therefore, we're going to need players that can play the ball out. I'd like to see a back four: Lewis, Fernandes, Shaw, and Manquillo, because I think that's our strongest back four. Lascelles, after Brentford, maybe undeservedly dropped, maybe, but it's just. I think is it still Shelby that's our vice captain? I just think when Lascelles isn't on the pitch, we'll lack a voice. Sometimes, but back four, Willock playing in the number 10 role. I think Willock actually, I think, didn't get the plaudits he maybe deserved from yesterday. I thought he quite quietly went about his business and centre mid. He was winning great challenges in the centre of the park and just doing the job you would want a centre mid to do. So I think he's went quite. It's been quite quiet. Willock back in number 10 role, go attacking against a team he obviously know, since he's the team we're signing from. Maxi out on that left hand side, Wilson striker, Miggy maybe to come back in on the right hand side, and then probably Hayden and Shelby sitting just in front of the defence. It's just going to be one of those games where we need to catch them on the break and just really go for it when we can. So
do you believe maybe he's not playing five at the back against a team who will probably dominate the possession, really try and get a couple of goals against us? It would be better just to play four at the back. Because I think we need to just exploit our attacking talent in that game. I think we need to it'll be an entertaining watch, I think, if that's the way we're going to play, because we just need to counter what Arsenal do. So we just need to catch them on the break every time. And I mean, look, Aaron Ramsdale's been in fantastic form. So he'll always be a worrying net. But just try and catch them on the break. I think Emirates is quite a wide pitch. I think it's one of the widest in the league. So in the league, if I'm not wrong. So we just need to use our width and Maxi cutting in, and have Miggy on the right. So he's cutting in with his left, because I know he hasn't got that strong of a shot. But just causing bother when we can with as many of the pitches we can get without conceding loads. Adam, do you echo Andy's comments there? You reckon playing four at the back and just trying to play as much entertaining and attacking football as possible?
I would like to see us play 4 at the back, but if we're playing 5 at the back at home against Brentford, then I've got a feeling we're going to play 5 at the back away at Arsenal. I mean, yes, I would love to see 4 at the back, like I've said, but I mean, it's the Emirates. We haven't won all season long. We've got a shocking record at Arsenal away, so I've got a feeling this match we're just going to play defensive and just try our best, really. It's the Burnley and Norwich game where we need to play 4 at the back and just go for the games. Those are the 2 home ones where it has to be 6 points, really, but in terms of the Arsenal match, yes, I say it again, I'm always confident in the team. Changes I would make personally, there has to be a change of goalkeeper. Dollar has to be dropped instantly after the performance. He was awful. Defensive-wise, I'm not a fan of the South, but I feel he has to start. Sean Fernandes alongside him, and I would personally play Jamal Lewis left back and Manquillo at right back. I'll have Willock and Shelby in the middle. And I would play Maximum left. I would have Fraser on the right, and I would have Wilson as a striker, I think, at the minute. I don't want to see Jordan get dropped, but I mean, there's just too many players at the minute to kind of pick and choose them. But Yeah, in terms of the prediction against Arsenal, I mean, I don't want to see it happen, but I feel like a defensive stance has got to be the way we look at that game because, I mean, it's good that they just lost Liverpool because the heads are beat down, but I still expect Arsenal to be thinking, oh, we've got 20th in the league next, we're going to go out there and try and destroy them, which is kind of the mentality I expect them to have.
Jack's put a comment in saying Arsenal aren't as good as you think they are. Lots of 1-0s against average teams. I hate to say it, Jack, we're not an average team. I think we're below average, so I'd more than favour Arsenal in this game. We'll go around the room with a little score prediction as well. Andy, yeah, you can go first, mate.
2-1 Newcastle. Joe Linton and Wilson to score.
So you think Joe Linton will play with the same amount of confidence that he had against Brentford on Saturday?
Why not, Onwards and upwards. Only way we can go now.
Exactly. Adam, are you remaining as confident?
I'm always confident. I put one with every single time. I'm going to say 3-1 Newcastle. I think Arsenal will score first. The second half we'll just have a masterclass somehow. But yeah, I'm at that point now. It's the early kick-off on Saturday, by the way. That's another important thing. Whenever you put bets on, for whatever reason, early kick-off.
Never back the early kick-off. Never back it.
So yeah, that reason alone, I think Newcastle have got a good chance of winning.
And you'll be at that game, won't you?
Yeah, I will be
Saturday. How long is it going to take to get there?
Probably about 6 hours.
6 hours. Adam, Mr. No Days Off himself. He was at the women's game as well today. Absolutely loves it. Before we finish this podcast, I think we need to talk about January. Of course, Christmas is coming. And what do we want for Christmas? Well, maybe not for Christmas, but for New Year's. January transfers. Andy, what do you think is a realistic transfer for Newcastle United in this January transfer window? And then a dream transfer as well.
Lingard, I think he's wanting away from Manchester United. And if we're going to remain playing Joe Willock as a centre mid, I think he's a player you can bring in as maybe 12, 10 million now since his contract's out in the summer. Lingard would be a perfect fit into our squad, I think, in someone we need. Other than him, Tarkowski in centre half, we showed yesterday that we need more strength in the defence. But I think the scary thing is we're relying on Callum Wilson to keep fit. And I mean, Joe Linton, we've seen he's starting to play more out on the wing again. So a striker, definitely. But to be honest, as dream, probably Ivan Toney, because I think with him and Maxi up top, they would cause havoc, I think, for defences. Yeah, I think Toney would be my dream one. Obviously, I want to keep it in some form of realistic. I'm not going to say Messi or anything. But I think, for me, Lingard and Ivan Toney.
What do you think it would take to get Ivan Toney to the club in terms of a financial point of view?
Big wages and the promise that he's going to be starting, because he obviously is every week for Brentford. So, I don't know. We just need someone that can compete with Callum Wilson, because let's be honest, Dwight Gale's a waste of a number at the minute, I think. I'd rather that he doesn't look like he's going to hit the back of the net anytime he comes on the pitch. I'd rather is it Dylan Stevenson that's playing for the Young'uns? I'd much rather see him come on the bench and see what he can do than Dwight Gale now.
And would you play him as a front two with Wilson, or sort of have one sort of playing after the other?
Who, Tony or
Tony and Wilson? Yeah.
Tony, yeah. I'd probably drop back to playing a 4-4-2, something like that.
From a Burnley ball.
Well, maybe not 4-4-2, maybe like a 4-1-3-2. If you know what I mean. Have Shelby just sit in front of the defence. Have Willock as your box-to-box midfielder sort of thing. Maxi on the left. To be honest, we do need a right winger as well. Saying that, Ryan Fraser again, but I said that when we did the podcast when Howard came in, I think it was last week, that I would love to think Eddie Howe could come in and exploit Ryan Fraser's talents like he did at Bournemouth. And that ball for the third, I think it was, Ryan Fraser yesterday, was fantastic. That's the player we thought we were getting when we got him on a free. Ryan Fraser is a good player. He's shown that in the past at Bournemouth. And so maybe he can come in now and sit comfortably on that right-hand side or swap with Maxi. But yeah, I think we just need good cover all over, really.
Yeah, I think just a bit of depth would be nice.
Yeah.
Adam, coming to you next, mate. Of course, realistic transfer targets and then a dream transfer as well.
I think Adama Traore, I'll probably say the realistic choice. I feel like with Wolves this season, he hasn't really performed how he normally would, and I feel like as a result, the club's kind of against him at the minute. He's just in and around the start 11. He doesn't play sometimes he's played. I just feel like at this moment in time, he's a player that Wolves just aren't that sort of keen on, and I feel like in Newcastle, I mean, with him and St Maximin in the same start, I mean, you guarantee goals. The pace of those two, the strength of Dom has got me. That has to be one of the discussions I've ever heard in my life. So. Yeah, I would look forward to going for him. I feel like with those two and kind of I feel like it's almost a perfect fun for you. I feel like so. I think Newcastle should try and get him definitely going for him. I feel like at the moment of time, the way he is at Wolves, I don't think it would be too expensive either, and I think he would potentially be keen depending on what we say to him. But in terms of a dream sign, the reason why I say the dream one because I don't see him leaving Manchester United, but I think Cavani is a really good striker. I think last season. Yes, he's a lot older now, but I think for 1 or 2 years, I mean, he's still one of the best in the business for me. I think he got like 11 goal contributions off the bench or something like Man United, or 11 goals even. But no, his ability is next to none. He's a target man. He's someone that Newcastle, I think, definitely need. And I just feel like he's better than what we have up top. And I would love to see him get an opportunity. But it depends on the Manchester United manager. It depends on what he wants. At this moment in time, I just don't really feel like he would want to come to Newcastle United. But in terms of a dream one, I'm a really big fan of him.
We've had a comment come in from Oliver just on what you said there, Andy, about Dwight Gale. He said Gale hasn't played, so you can't say that he won't score. He was on the bench and he comes on sometimes, but I mean, even when he does play, he doesn't really score at all, does he?
But there's a reason he doesn't play, or we don't play him because he's just not good enough for you. That's what I feel like with Gale.
Exactly, because he's been on and he's shown he can't do it. Look, I know he was one of the main reasons we got promoted when we did, but look, that's 4 years ago now. A lot happens in 4 years. Look how our defence is depleted. We haven't signed a defender since 2018.
2018, yeah.
And Gale hasn't shown that he can compete anymore. I'm not convinced that he's a Premier League player. I think he's a Championship player at best. Even when he went on loan to West Brom, he wasn't as lethal as he was when we were last in the Championship. So, no, I don't think Gale deserves a chance, to be honest, at all in that side anymore. I think he is one of the players that needs to be shipped off in January.
Without a doubt, and I mentioned this in the last podcast, I don't think we're really bothered about how much we get for them, just as long as they're off the squad is the main thing. But I think very, very interesting players that you've mentioned there, Ivan Toney, Edson Cavani, both strikers as well. And it's quite surprising, I must say, considering that, you know, our front three, it's all right. It's more the defence that's a problem. So I am quite surprised you guys haven't put defenders as your dream transfers.
Who would yours be, Lou?
Realistic, I think I'd go with you and say Jesse Lingard, but I think the fact that he's already come out and publicly said that he'd want to go on a free makes us think that he'd go abroad rather than going to a club like West Ham or Newcastle or anything like that. And the thing is, would he want to come to Newcastle as well when he sees how well West Ham are doing? You know, top 4 in the league, we're rock bottom, potentially going down to the Championship. Let's hope not. Dream transfer.
You'd half think he'd be keeping an eye on United's situation now as well. Obviously, Ollie going earlier today, so he might even change his mind at this rate. But,
definitely. It was something I was thinking at work, actually, just on Jesse Lingard. I thought it would be nice to have him here, but with a new manager coming in, whether it's, you know, Zidane, Ten Hag, anyone like that, you never know what he could do. In terms of dream transfers, I mean, I think we should just reach for the stars. Maybe it's like a Nicholas Sewell, like a Matt Hummels, like a good centre back. You know, either a centre back or a right back. I feel like I've been calling out for a right back for ages, and maybe it's not realistic, but Joshua Kimmich is a right back. And I think
maybe not realistic.
It's not realistic.
Yeah.
So 100 million at him, and he's going to sign.
Maybe Traore from Stade Ron. I've probably butchered the pronunciation of the team name there, but looks a decent fullback, and I do agree fullbacks is a position we've been lacking with. Like Adam mentioned before, Jacob Murphy is a right winger. He's not a fullback. You know what I mean? And I mean, I think that's probably going to be summer. I think summer we'll see Newcastle spend a lot on first team players, but players that can be in and around the squad and compete with those first team players, because I think that's something we're really struggling with at the minute.
Without a doubt. And Oliver he's put another comment in. Just he doesn't think that we're going to buy from the Premier League. It's more about players from abroad. They might be a bit cheaper from abroad. Of course, there's that anything but Newcastle clause that people are going to start throwing in.
I think that's very Mike Ashley ownership mentality, though. I think we've got to get used to this new ownership thing, because look, we weren't signing players over 28 or 27. That might totally change now. And yes, while players will sign players from abroad, we will bring players from abroad. But what we need right now is someone we can come into a Premier League side and hit the ground running straight away. Yes, take some risks, do bring some foreign talent in, but I do think we need the likes of Jesse Lingard, Tarkowski, players that can come into the side straight away and perform.
That's the problem, though. That's the worry I have now with Jesse Lingard. I don't think he's going to join now because, well, one, we're at the bottom of the league, and two, they've got this new manager in. So, like we said before, we don't really know what his situation is now. I'd like him to come to Newcastle, but I just think it doesn't really, attract him as much as a West Ham deal would now. I know they were a bit higher up last season as well. It would have been a lot more realistic last season too, if obviously we were in the position that we were then, but now I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, the problem was always going to be is our position going into January. That's going to be our biggest pull, because if we still look like we're so many points off the drift of being out of the relegation zone, the players that are going to want to come to the club are the ones that have seen, they've got new ownership, they've got a bit of money now. They're going to be the ones that are going to be demanding the higher wages and maybe not perform as better as the likes of your Lingards and Tarkowskis. So we just really, really need to pick up the points. I mean, I said last week I think the bare minimum we should be looking at from the next 5 games is 9 points. And that was obviously including 3 points coming from Brentford. So I still think that's what we need. Whether we'll get it is a doubt now, but we just desperately need to pick up points going into January. Otherwise, I think we can kiss goodbye to signing players that we actually need.
I think we need to come back to this conversation towards the end of December and really see what position we're in, because there's still loads of games before New Year's that we could still win. A couple of shocking wins that we could get against Liverpool, Man City, Man United as well. That's the dream, but just have to see if it happens.
Well, there's plenty of chance for Callum Wilson to get injured as well. That could mean transfer targets totally change, because Wilson gets injured, and if it's another long-term one, automatically you're looking at a striker in January, while we might have been looking at a midfielder or a defender at first to bring in. So it all just depends, mate, what happens in these next coming up games. It's
a worry, and that's why I mentioned squad depth as well beforehand, because we might have a few players in each position, but it doesn't mean that they're any good. That's the sort of main problem with things. As well, at the start of the season, I think we sort of made our own little predictions on who we thought the player of the season was going to be. Mine personally has not done what I thought he would in Jacob Murphy, I'm afraid.
That was both of us, man.
Yeah. What about most improved player? So the player who maybe didn't start very well this season or didn't have a good end to last season, who has really sort of stepped up the game at the start of this season and has become that sort of starlet in the team. Adam, I'll start with you on this one.
I don't really think many players have improved, to be honest, from last season. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I don't think he's particularly good, but I mean, I used to hate Kraft every single game last season. Now I don't hate him as much, so I guess he's improved a little bit. But I mean, that's about it, really. So Max and Wilson are still good, and that's about it, really. Every other player I think is actually downgraded from last year. So I mean, he's not even an improved player, from my opinion, as harsh as it sounds.
That is rather harsh, Adam. Andy, what about yourself? Have you got a player or two that you'd put on that list?
Well, after yesterday's performance, I would hope Joe Linton. I would hope that he would continue that form on. I think it all just depends that the coaches have grabbed them after and said, look, class, that's what we need from you. More of that. And if he does put those performances in, he's going to score more, he's going to look more threatening. And with each goal he gets, the more confidence is going to come. Look, his performance yesterday won't have done him any bad whatsoever. So Joe Linton, hopefully, if he comes into the frame, Jamal Lewis. I think we all want to see him in. So hopefully, if he was to come in, then maybe Jamal Lewis and Shelby. If Shelby's getting his match fitness up and can play 90 minutes fully without flagging up, Shelby can't do any harm either.
Nice one. I think for me personally, I'm going to go with Sean Longstaff, a player who I think he was quite disappointing at points last season. But I think in games, especially the Watford game as well, he really sort of showed his potential, and he showed what he showed under Rafa as well. I think with a new manager now, with Eddie Howe coming in, he's a cracking man manager, and he really wants to make sure he can get the best out of his players. And I think a guy like Sean Longstaff, you'd look and you think he's going to be one of the people that wants to really push on. And, I think Matty sort of outshone him when he come into the team, and I think he's still got a little sort of chip on his shoulder because of that.
Yeah.
And I think he's always sort of been trying to prove that. It's obviously swap Matty with his brother. He's always sort of just been trying to prove that, he's maybe better than his brother. He's the big brother, and he wants to play like he's the big brother, and he wants to bully other opposition players. Do you guys agree on that?
He looked off the pace yesterday, mind. I think he has just lost a lot of confidence in himself at the minute, and I think if he can't get that confidence back, great. And look, he played in the number 10 role. I've mentioned this before against Bournemouth last season, and looked good. I think he might have came off injured halfway through, and I'm sure he might have scored. But he looked good in that game, and he looked good in the number 10 role. And he's one of the only players we've got that's not afraid to have a dig from outside the box. I've noticed that. I mean, it's quite common. It's common throughout the league now. There's less and less players that are confident to have a long range dig. And he proved in the under-23s that he can hit them from distance.
He's in the Watford game as well.
Exactly, and he scored. He's a local lad. You should want him to kick on and do well. I mean, I certainly do. And I'm fully looking forward to Matty coming back, because if Matty's got his head right coming back from Aberdeen under new management, he could still be a brilliant player, I think.
Would you recall Matty in January?
No.
If we can, no.
No. I think let him have his time up there in the SPL. But I didn't mention before, Ryan Fraser as well, mate. Came on, had a great game when he came on yesterday. So hopefully that's him improving, and that's hopefully the form he's going to keep on, because them balls that he knocked in for Maxi's goal, they're always going to be lethal against the defence. So if that's what he's going to bring now, bring it on. That's what we want to see. I'm
really hoping we can kick on as a team and maybe just show a lot of the people who have quite a lot of doubts in this team, because I know there are a lot of doubters in the Newcastle fan base. It's not a nice sort of fan base to be a part of when we're losing. So hopefully we can get a couple of wins and sort of lift the fans' ace up a little bit more. Adam, what do you reckon with Sean Longstaff? Do you think he's improved at all this season, or?
I want to like Sean Longstaff. I do. He's a local lad again. He's keeping no shoes went for the under-23s. He is a player that's got from the youth team and got to the main team, but from what I've seen this season so far, I'm not a fan of him. No, I don't know what it is with him. It's just the way he plays. I mean, I watched him yesterday. I couldn't believe some of the things he's doing. He's a player that really has gotten under my skin now. I would love to see him do well. I really hope under Eddie Howe that after a couple of games or so, you start to become the player once wasn't the Benitez. But I don't know about the Longstaff, to be honest. I'll be honest, I really don't see him having a future at the club at this moment in time. But I really hope that changes. But yeah, I'm not a fan of him at all.
Oh man, it's a shame as well, because we always do want to see the local lads do well, and maybe if it's not for the Longstaffs, it'll be another local lad that'll come through. Maybe in the next couple of years with the advancement of the training ground, the youth setup as well, we could see a couple of other players come through. But yeah, that is going to be everything for this podcast. It has been another cracker. Unfortunately, not a win that we're talking about, but hopefully the Fab Four will be able to talk about another win in the next game against Arsenal. But yeah, thanks so much everyone for coming on, and thanks for everyone for tuning in as well. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.